Last Wednesday, I had to stand down 12 beautiful people that have been working with me on my Qantas project. Social distancing 1.5 metres came out. By Friday, it was one person per square 4 metres. By Sunday, we were closed. Extraordinary times.
This is the Deep in the Weeds podcast. I'm Anthony Huckstep. The COVID-19 pandemic has altered our lives, perhaps forever. It's not the end of the world, folks, but damn, it feels like it at times. This podcast is raw, real. We're doing it on the fly, but hopefully we can get a bit of a laugh and give you a bit of hope too, because God damn it, we need it. I've got one of Australia's culinary legends with me. We're obviously not together. I'm in my lounge room and Neil's in Sydney. Neil Perry, what the hell happened?
Mate, it's incredible, isn't it? A couple of weeks ago we were watching the amazing women's T20 cricket team win the World Cup, and the next minute it was extraordinary. I mean, last Wednesday I had to stand down 12 beautiful people that have been working with me on my Qantas project until our Qantas contract restarts again when they start flying. That was Wednesday. Social distancing 1.5 metres came out. By Friday, it was one person per square 4 metres. By Sunday, we were closed. Extraordinary times.
A most extraordinary week. Like we've watched this sort of it hasn't been called a pandemic until sort of more recently, but we've watched it happen globally, and then we just weren't ready for it. That week was it felt like a year. Can you tell us how it sort of unfolded from your perspective? You have so many restaurants and, when did you start noticing the change?
Oh, look, honestly, the week before last, we were trading probably 10% down on last year, doing really, really well with all things considered. The social distancing and the message to the public last week was to be very careful, and we saw turnover drop by just extraordinary 70%. We got through last week where it would have been probably worthwhile opening Rockpool and a few of the other restaurants, not all of them. But the decision was made obviously on Sunday night by the government to close down the restaurant industry. And look, I pragmatically sitting here thinking, why aren't we closing down all industries and sending everybody home except for essential services and hunkering down for a period of time so we can get out the other end, sooner rather than later, would be my view.
I think you're 100% right. I mean, I think, people aren't taking notice of the shutdown, and, I think the messaging from the government has been a little bit confusing. And unfortunately, the impact for so many Australians has just been swift and completely brutal. And, for you, how many staff do you employ, and what sort of impact has it had on all of them?
Well, Qantas, a dozen, and I had to stand them down, and in the Rockpool dining group, 3,000, and we've had to make that decision as well. There's just really HR and a couple of other people at head office who are dealing with all the conversations that need to be had to help people through this. One of the things as we mothballed Rockpool and Spice and Rosetta, and same in Melbourne, is, we got everybody online and we got everybody on the phone, and we chatted to them and tried to sort of say, stay positive. We love you. You're the most important people in our lives, our incredible staff. And, we will come through this. And when we open, we want you all selfishly all back. And I know some will have to go and do other things, but I think a lot of us are just going to end up locked up in our house. So, what support can the government give to everyone? They've come out with a certain amount of support. How much support can they give to business? Again, there's been a certain amount, but this virus is indiscriminate, and it's going to attack everybody in every age group, and it's going to be fatal for some, and others are going to recover. But the economy is going to need to be guided by the governments of this country, and businesses like ours, which are very cash flow driven, and that's most businesses around the world and around Australia, really rely on funds continuing to flow. So we're going to need, whether small, medium, or large, we're going to need, as businesses, we're going to need cash flow injections to get to the other side and to be able to open up and make sure that we've only got 5% unemployment rather than 25% unemployment.
Yeah, I mean, you've been around a long time. I mean, you're only marginally older than me, but you've experienced a lot of ups and peaks and troughs in the industry.
Yeah, mate. Look, I started in the business in 1976, and we've seen sort of RBT and FBT and various things that have attacked the restaurant industry, GST, moving through to SARS, MERS in the airline business, Asian financial crisis, GFC, tsunami, all these extraordinary, 9/11, all these extraordinary world events that have had an impact on our fellow restaurateurs around the world as well as here in Australia. Nothing has ever prepared me to pack up my restaurants and walk away never knowing when I'll be able to reopen them.
How does it make you feel?
Look, it really made me feel incredibly sad and for my people, because I love them so much and I try to support them and try to help them grow, and we work through so many things together. And then it just made me resilient, because I've got to get to the other end. Our businesses have got to get to the other end. We've got to get these young kids back in jobs. We've got to get them working. We've got to get them giving beautiful hospitality. We've got to bring back the tourism industry at some stage. I mean, Qantas has got to fly again, and we've got to bring back socializing and the love of Verve for life. But of course, we have to do that responsibly. So it can only happen at the end of this experience.
All these things, really epitomize the industry. It's such a people-driven industry, and people are so passionate. And I've had a career writing about these incredibly talented people and the sort of cultural gift that they give to our country. Why did you get into hospitality, and what do you love about it?
Well, mate, I really fell into it taking a gap year, and I started working as a waiter to make some money to travel overseas. And I think it was about the third night I was working, I just fell in love with it. I realized I found something that I really enjoyed doing, and I really enjoyed the camaraderie and the social aspect, and also just that verve for life that restaurant people have. And that was a long time ago, and in a galaxy far, far away, really, from where we are today. But it was still an extraordinary time.
You had more of a mullet then, didn't you?
Yes, yeah, I did.
I think you had more of a mullet in those days. I certainly had a mullet back then.
Yeah, I did, and back in the 70s, man, it was absolutely, and certainly, working front of house and running restaurants and bars and sort of being responsible for people, which I did from a very early age. I was sort of an assistant manager from 19. And then coming into the kitchen at 25, and again being responsible at the end of my 25th year for running a kitchen, and ever since, I suppose.
Well, I think a lot of people don't know that about you.
No, the front of house part, you mean, or the?
Yeah, definitely. And then,
well, I think it gives me a very balanced view.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah, I think it gives me the view of being a restaurateur, I think, rather than just considering myself a chef.
Oh, absolutely. But, we talk about hospo, and there's a lot of emotion about restaurants closing, which is horrendous.
Yeah.
But you've always been the chef that talks the talk and walks the walk with producers and suppliers, and, they're really hurting too. And,
absolutely.
If there's anyone in this country that's championed producers, it's you. I mean, I don't know if you want to talk about this because it's not really public, but remember when we were on that boat in Spencer Gulf, and unfortunately we were prawn fishing, and unfortunately you
I was green.
One of the only ones that didn't take. Yes, you were the only one that didn't take the seasickness pill. Actually, you and the video guy, and
Yeah, we were both crook.
Uh, yeah, but
Oh,
that sort
mate.
of commitment. We spent overnight on the boat, a whole team of us, and like I had the pill and I was still
Yeah,
crook, but um,
yeah,
like
yeah.
your commitment to get out there on the boat and you still filmed a video. I mean, you're a little bit pale in it, but but your commitment to
Yeah.
Australian produce is extraordinary. And how do can you tell us a bit about what they're going through at the moment? And have you had any discussions with producers and suppliers? And
I have, mate. I have. I've rung all of our real key small suppliers and medium to large, and had a personal conversation with them and talked about the fact that we'll be back supporting them as soon as we can, and talking to some of them about the retail opportunities that are out there. People have still got to eat, and I hope when they close all of us down and but keep essentials open, that they've still got those greengrocers and the Vix Meats of this world and the small fishmongers and so forth, and they don't just shut it out and make us all shop at supermarkets, because all these really awesome small suppliers find a home through those specialty purveyors, and it's really important that we do find a home for us. I mean, all these incredible small vegetable suppliers and handline fishermen and small free range and organic chicken and pork rearers. Their total focus is on the great restaurants of Australia, and so now we unfortunately can't help support them for a period of time. But I hope their great product finds its way into the retail opportunities that some of our great purveyors have got out there. So I would suggest that I don't know what online and deliveries and things are happening with a Feathers and Bone or Two Providors or Vix out at Victor Churchill and the various DeCostis and these guys, but it'd be really worth, or Sticks Farms out on the beautiful Hawkesbury River, but it'd be worth kind of trawling through websites and seeing who is doing box produce to people in Sydney, Melbourne, Adelaide, Brisbane, and obviously Perth, Hobart. All of our small producers need supporting through this. I mean, mate, we all live very hand to mouth in the business, and no matter how big or small we are, we tend to really look at cash flow as being how we run our businesses. And of course, when cash comes to a complete grinding halt coming in, and it doesn't come to a halt going out, all businesses find themselves in the predicament of insolvency. So we are looking at, without government support, not only unemployment, but insolvencies in businesses that will never come back after this horrific experience that we're going through, unless the government supports us through it.
it's true.
This episode of Deep in the Weeds is proudly supported by Olsen Salt, makers of Australian sea salt since 1948.
The sea has given my family everything. My family harvests the pristine waters from the Great Australian Bight to make some of the best sea salt in the world. Hi, I'm Alex Olsen from Olsen Sea Salt. We are the oldest family-owned salt company in Australia. We took over the leases of Pacific Salt in Baruka on the York Peninsula in the early 1960s. And then when the BHP salt leases in Whyalla became available, my father took those over as well. If anyone has visited Whyalla, know it's a very, very windy place. So the three things you need to make salt are seawater, wind and sun, and you get plenty of all three of those here. Wind is a really important factor in making good sea salt because it creates a greater surface area for the sun to evaporate the water, creating brine much faster. We take the seawater from Great Australian Bight and then we store it in something called a primary pond. Then it's fed through a succession of ponds from anywhere between 8 months and 2 years until it gets so heavy in brine and the water is evaporated off, the salt starts to fall out of the water, and it's as simple as that. That's all that we do, and then we wash it in seawater and package it.
For more information, go to olsens.com.au.
One of the amazing things that has happened from this is, depressing and sad as it can be, is that, Australians have an amazing ability to adapt and evolve and innovate, and the pivoting that's been happening in the industry to try and save their business and save staff with doing those sort of things with delivery boxes and people changing to takeaway, and then creating a little shopping centres in there, supplying milk and coffee.
Yeah.
It's just extraordinary. But from your perception, what are the main difficulties and challenges, do you think, in the sort of coming months?
Well, I mean, I think it's going to be consumer confidence, mate. So as we all hunker down, we're going to become more and more paranoid, I guess, for very good reason. And the only way we can stop this thing and get open is to stop the curve. I mean, I think definitively, if our brilliant scientists who are working around the globe can find either a vaccine or a cure, or both, and I believe around the world, not so much on vaccine but on cure, they're getting closer and closer, because again, these brilliant people. I mean, you and I have both lived through an age in around this world where some of our most talented and brilliant people died of that terrible AIDS virus, and through their brilliance, AIDS is no longer a death sentence. As a matter of fact, many people live their entire life with AIDS now, and I believe that a lot of the drugs that they're experimenting with through that have already got approval through the authorities are having some good effect on this virus. So when we get a cure, we'll really start to change the dynamic of what we're able to do, because if we can cure vulnerable people, we can then let the virus run a little bit more, I suppose. So we're really hanging out for that cure or vaccine. But importantly, what we need to do is, as a group, I suppose, take a lot of responsibility. And I've talked to my staff a lot about this. So, the government's talking about it. Be aware, great hygiene. I mean, I've never washed my hands so often, sanitized my hands so often, and been paranoid about wiping my phone and steering wheel down. But nothing is going to stop me from going and having a coffee at room 10 in the morning to support Andrew, or going and buying a loaf of Iggy's bread or a great piece of meat from Victor Churchill until Iggy stops baking or they close their doors, because I think it's important that we do turn our focus to now what we can do with small business, and we have to support their products, and we just have to be very careful when we go out, and we have to practice social distancing, and we have to be aware that there's an unseen danger out there, but we can't become so paranoid that we just don't leave our homes.
Totally. So, as arguably the most influential restaurateur Australia's ever had, I don't want to blow smoke up your ass there, but you're very influential.
Thank you.
Yeah, but
that's just that's a preface of saying I'm just bloody old, isn't
it? yeah, possibly. Well, I didn't want to say it. I got the mullet joke in, but I think I thought that was enough.
yeah, absolutely.
Look, what would you say to industry? You have been through tough times, and obviously this is extraordinarily difficult circumstances and unprecedented. But what would you say to the people that have lost their jobs, or people that are still fighting? What would you say to them?
Well, mate, I'd just say hunker down, do what you can to get whatever government assistance is out there, and let me tell you, Hux, wherever it sits at the moment. Look, don't be surprised by September if there's nearly $1 trillion up for grabs, because we are going to have to support everything going forward. So I would say hunker down, get onto whatever benefits you can, have a look as it unfolds. They're talking about rent relief currently for both commercial and residential. All of these things, utilities, electricity, gas, everything is going to have to bend. We're already seeing the banks support not interest holidays yet, but certainly repayment holidays to those that have lost their jobs or are in difficult times, or businesses that have mortgages. So I would say it isn't the end of the world. I think the Australian people are great. People are fantastic around the world and resilient, and we will come back from this, although at the moment it seems like the darkest of times. But at the end, we have to be ready to start up and create jobs and create great experiences and come out of this so that we are ready to socialise and create hospitality and welcome tourists back into our country at some stage. And I would say to every young person in the business and every restaurateur out there that is absolutely wondering if they're going to make it, just push as hard as you can. Take every level of assistance that you possibly can from government and others, and let's get to the other end and get this country open for business again.
Yeah, amazing. Neil, I think you're always, one of the things that's always inspired me is that you always have a positive belief in things. You always back things. You don't let the negative get you down too much. And that's one of the reasons I wanted to talk to you first, is because, these are extraordinarily bad circumstances. But I mean, that optimism, I mean, can you tell me you're determined to fight back and get the industry back. I mean, where to from here? Where do you see it? When we get if we get the curve down, what do you see happening in the future with hospitality?
Mate, I think, again, with government support, we'll get to the point where the health crisis is averted and we know where the end game is with it. And then the economic crisis that we're in will be the massive focus to pull us out of that. And there's only one way to do that, and that's jobs. So I think we'll get to the point where we will get a chance to reopen, and we'll open and we'll talk to our beautiful customers, statewide and then domestically. And then finally at the end, hopefully sometime this year, we start to open international borders, and that might happen, country by country: New Zealand, Japan, Singapore, Hong Kong, places that have got the pandemic under control, and then finally the world. And so it's going to be, Hux, very much a staged recovery, I think, and it will be step by step. But we will bring on and train, and we will welcome back our amazing staff that worked with us previously. And then we will continue to grow the business. So I always, my one way of getting through life, no matter what people and things are throwing at me, is that I absolutely understand that I cannot control what I can't control. I can't panic about. I have to look at only the things that I can control, and I have to work with those. And when I do that, I often find that it's a really calming influence on me, and that I understand that, whoever's losing their head around me, as long as I don't lose mine, it's going to be okay in the end. And I don't say that flippantly, because I know a lot of people may well have long-term unemployment out of this, and I know a lot of people may lose their businesses and their livelihoods. But I think if we hunker down and if we get the right support from government and each other, we will come out the other side.
Mate, I'd really, really appreciate you talking into these extraordinary circumstances. It's been quite a week, and when I texted you and asked you to do this, you replied like instantly and put your hand up, and that's what you've always done. And mate, hopefully we can get people talking, get people inspired, get people staying safe, and get out of the weeds. Looking after each other, yeah. That's right. Mate, I'm also hoping for some great leadership from government. Mate, I watched a press conference last night which turned into a rabble, and I would just say to Scott Morrison, we really, really need addresses to the nation. We don't need press conferences. We need to look at people and go, they're in control. They've got our destiny in their hands. They know where they're going. We can believe there's a way out of this. And I would just say to every government leader at the moment, please lead, please address the nation, please work on the positives, and please don't have rabble 40-minute press conferences. We don't need that. 100% agree, mate. Absolutely agree. Thank you so much, Neil. You're a legend. Pleasure, mate. Hopefully we can, get through this, and hopefully this series we can share some stories and help those that need it in the sector, because, geez, they've given us the most extraordinary cultural hub on the planet, and we need it back for everyone. We do, mate. We need to laugh again, and we need to drink again, and we need to cheers each other. But thanks for calling, Hugs. All right, mate. Take care. This is the Deep in the Weeds podcast. I'm Anthony Huckstep. Stay tuned as we share the stories of Australia's hospo community, suppliers and producers in search of hope during this pandemic. A special thanks to executive producer Rob Locke for making this all happen. Stay safe, isolate, and be well.